Hello, people. I finished a book, History of the Goths. I forgot the author's name already. I gotta find it here. Herwig Wolfram. This was, I plucked this out of my previously started book pile. I don't know when I started this thing. It's probably, as long as a year ago. There was a bookmark in it on page 41. And I picked it up and started reading it, and I thought to myself, why the fuck did I stop reading this? This is not that bad. But there was parts of it that were a little bit excruciating. Even though I'm no stranger to this time period, and I really enjoy reading about the age of migration, I will freely admit that this book was a little bit over my head. There was a lot of place names that I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. River names that I was unfamiliar with. Even tribal names that I was unfamiliar with. I thought at one point I said, wow, is this like a really new book where things have changed? No, this was from 1979. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the way old Herwig writes stuff. This first note, is when I was originally reading it, so it couldn't have been that long ago because I haven't been doing these book reports for that long. The note says, every year through archaeology there is new info added to the tribal pool table that was the first millennium Europe. This book was written in 1979. And again, will I buy out-of-date information? Oh, I wrote something about DNA being in its infancy, because DNA info comes into stuff now. Contemporary authors on the Gothic tribes, the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths. Of course, there was many, many, many contemporary authors. They talk a little bit about a book called the Origio Gothica. And originally he says that Jordanes wrote this. And then later on in the book, he said that Cassiodorus wrote it, but Jordanes rewrote it and changed it all around. And then at another point in the book, it sounds like it was the opposite, that Jordanes wrote it and Cassiodorus. I don't know. I didn't Google to see which one of them was alive before the other. Obviously, that's a Latin title. Could I ever get a hold of that book? Is it readable? I doubt it. There's a legend, a Gothic legend, that they were all heading east. They were heading towards the Black Sea area. And half of the tribe had crossed some river over a bridge. And then the bridge collapsed. And so that led to the splitting up, the Ostrogoths and the Visigoths, Ostro being east. It probably never happened, like most cool mythology. It probably never happened. Maybe it happened on a miniature scale, and it became legend. This note here, a lot of times I'll bitch about a book. Especially historians will just insert a sentence in French. Sometimes they will insert a sentence in German. They do it so much that I can actually figure it out now. But this guy was inserting this kind of shit. I don't know if that's fucking Greek or what that is. And of course it doesn't look exactly like I have it written down there, because apparently in this language, there's the thickness of lines and everything. Then I go all the way to the end, and I just have my notepad. There's a gentleman named Ulfilas. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right. That translates the Bible into Gothic. And I wrote here for better or worse. I wish they would have spent as much time on the Origio Gothica as they did on this Gothic Bible, because, I don't know, I just didn't give a shit about that. By page 118, we're finally on the Goths crossing the Danube into Roman territory. The revolt soon begins. This author spends very little time on all these famous events. Adrianople is like one page. The Catalonian fields are like one page. I wasn't real crazy about the way that this guy wrote the book. I realized that anything that Cassiodorus or Jordanes would have written would have concerned Gothic nobility. That's pretty much what this author concentrates on, is Gothic nobility, what they did, who their sister married, and that's the way history is, because history is not written about commoners. Gothic troops in Roman service, Gothic Christians stayed loyal to Rome. That was at a time when some of the Goths were still pagans, and even after they accepted Christianity, the Goths were Arian. And I'm not going to go into what that means, because I'm fucking sick and tired of reading about the Arian controversy. Religion was stronger than blood. Adrianople, Alaric sacks Rome. He dies, soon after that. And this is the first book I've ever read, because there's this beautiful story about how Alaric is buried, how they divert a river, they bury him in the riverbed, and then they allow the river to go back to its original course. They kill all the slaves that dug the grave and everything. This guy maintains that that's a myth, that didn't happen at all. The Goths, the Goths requested permission to enter Roman territory, and the Romans allowed them to cross the Danube. The Romans then began to mistreat them and not honor their promises to them, and so there was a big revolt, and it turned out very bad for the Romans. Especially for Italy, it turned out very bad. Not so much for the Eastern Roman Empire. But this story, and it's not just a story, and it's true events, has been co-opted by the people that are anti-immigration. They're like, you see what happens when you let these people in your country? I suppose they have a point. I wish I would have marked what page this was. Bottom of 207. Let's see if I can find this. There's 207. Oh, this is something, I don't know if this is going to be interesting or not. This is a guy named Sidonius Apollonius, and what he's doing is he's writing a letter to a Roman woman called Agricola, and he's describing Theodoric. And there's several parts of this letter, this descriptive letter. I'm just going to read the hunting part. When a hunt has been proclaimed and he rides forth, he considers it beneath his royal dignity to have his bow slung at his side. But if in the chase or on the road a bird or a beast appears within his range, he reaches back and an attendant places the bow in his hand, with the string or thong hanging loose, for he thinks it childish to carry a bow in a case and womanish to take it over ready strung. When he takes it, he either holds it straight in front of him and bends the two ends and so strings it, or he rests it upon his raised foot, the end that has the knot, and runs his finger along the loose string until he comes to the dangling loop. Then he takes up the arrows, sets them in place, and lets them fly. I just thought it was kind of cool that the bow is not even strung. And forgive my slow reading there, because I don't know, I turned the lights off in here before I made the video, because I thought it looked better without the lights behind me. But it's not light enough for me to read. And then I have one word here, and it is Thrax. At one point in my reading career, a couple of years ago, I thought, I'm going to get a fucking book on every Roman emperor. And when you buy your books at a used bookstore, you're not going to find what you're looking for. It's impossible for me to get it there at the used bookstore. So bits and pieces, I've got quite a few of them. And I have one of them titled Maximus Thrax. And he was a very interesting Roman emperor. This is later, you know, it's, well, actually, I'll tell you when it is. Because, and here I'm having a problem with the lights again. There's a list here of Roman emperors. And it goes from Severus Alexander, who ruled in 222 to 235. This is CE. And then it jumps to Gordian III, who ruled from 238 to 244. What happened to the years 236 and 237? It does not have Maximus Thrax in here. There's a 3-year gap in this otherwise quite helpful list of Roman emperors. Maximus Thrax just happens to be one of the books I had. He was an interesting guy, suffered from gigantism, only he didn't look like a big giant potato like some of these wrestlers like Andre the Giant. He didn't look like shit. Maximus Thrax was like a giant fucking monster. If you Google, you know, his bust, you can see his face. His head was huge. That's it. Thanks for watching.